Wow. I so desperately wanted to be in that little music video, but I got shot out. But hey, what a great way to start a message today about traveling through life with other people than the theme song of the hit TV show Friends. And for 10 seasons, from like 1994 to 2004, those 6 friends on the TV show Friends, they did life together. They were there for each other through all of the botched relationships and through all of the boneheaded moves that they all made. And after 10 seasons, 236 episodes, I'm going to give you a one-sentence summary of the TV show Friends. Here it is. Good friends don't let their friends do stupid things alone. No hate mail. That is what the TV show Friends taught us. Well, welcome to week 3, everyone, of our series called Travel Essentials. And what we're trying to do in this series is we're trying to travel better. We're trying to get down the road of life without ending up in the ditches of life. We're trying to have fewer boneheaded moves and fewer botched relationships. And for that to happen, we have to make better decisions. So how do we make better decisions? Well, that's what this series has been all about. There are 3 travel essentials that will help you make better decisions. Let's review together. First of all, we talked about this 2 weeks ago. Look back. Look back. And the question we ask here is simply this: what have I learned from the past? Before I go this way or that way, I need to stop and ask, have I made that decision some time ago in the past? And if so, what did I learn from the decision I made back then? Because we will either learn from the past or we will repeat the past. The second travel essential, and Joel did a great job with this last weekend, is simply this: look ahead. Look ahead. The question here is, where will this decision take me? Because every decision I make takes me somewhere. Every decision we make points our feet in a certain direction, and it all leads to a certain destination. So before I go with A or B, before I spend this or marry this or do this, I have to ask myself, where does this take me? Because it's going to take me somewhere. And that leads me to the third of our travel essentials. If we're going to make better decisions and fewer regrets, we need to thirdly learn from others. The question we ask here is simply this: what would a wise person say to me as I embark on this journey, as I decide which direction I'm going to go? If there was a wise person sitting next to me, what would they say to me? Now, let me give you kind of a silly example. Several years ago, I took my wife, 25th wedding anniversary, to Italy. We had never been to Italy before. We had been to Olive Garden, but not Italy. We'd never been to Italy before, and we had saved money for years and years and years to go to Italy. And so since we had never been there before, we went and we got this book from the library, Rick Steves' book on how to do Italy. If you don't know who Rick Steves is, kind of a nerdy guy, but he is a travel guru. He had been to Italy over 20 times before he wrote this particular book on doing Italy. So we thought, hey, we've never been there before. He's been there 20 times. We got the book. We devoured the book. And the number one bit of information that Rick Steves gave us was how to pack your bags for Italy. And what he said was, go light, travel lightly. Make sure everything you're bringing fits into the overhead compartment. And that was hard for us, but we did it. And I can tell you, friends, it was a great piece of advice, because what we had no idea when it comes to traveling through Italy is how many times you are on and off buses and getting on and off trains. It is constant. And as we were all kind of footloose and fancy-free, so many people with these big monster pieces of luggage, and you know who you are, they were miserable. They were miserable, absolutely miserable. I'll never forget one moment where I think we got off a bus and we were ready to walk into a train station, and we looked up and there's this woman, and she's stuck in the entryway of the train station with one of those humongous pieces of luggage, 4 foot by 4 foot, and she's crying out. She's saying, Michael, Michael, help me, Michael, Michael, help me. And what she was trying to do is get the attention of her husband, Michael, who had already gone through the doorway and who was kind of moving away from her. And by the way, Michael had no interest whatsoever in helping her. My guess is the reason why he probably said to her, do not bring that bag to Italy. And she did. And so she's just crying out, Michael, Michael, help me, help me. Now, maybe you're wondering right now, Pastor Phil, did you help her? What do you think? Come on, do you really have to ask that question of me? Actually, the answer is no. Pastor Phil did not help her. Do not ask Pastor Phil for help on vacation, okay? Now, let me just get to the moral of the story. What is the moral of the story? And the moral of the story is simply this. Listen to the people who have gone before you. Listen to the people who are out in front of you just a little bit. Listen to the people who are maybe a little bit older or maybe a little bit wiser than you. If someone has been to Italy 20 times, you should probably consult them. So let me ask you kind of a weird question, and here it is right here. Who is your Rick Steves? Who is that person before you go this way or that way, before you make a decision of importance that really matters? Who is your Rick Steves? Who is that person that you tap on the shoulder and say, hey, can I bounce something off of you? Would you give me a little input? Would you give me a little counsel? Would you give me a little bit of advice? I'm not talking about the Rosses and the Chandlers and the Phoebes and all the other friends. I hope you have a group of friends. I'm not talking about those people. I'm talking about those people who are outside of that circle of friends, older, wiser, more experienced. Who are those people that I turn to, and who are those people that you turn to when you're facing an important decision in your life? Why is this important? Why is this important? I'll tell you a couple reasons, and they're both really just one reason. One reason why I need these people and you need these people is because we have an inner salesman who lives inside of us, who is very, very convincing. I have an inner salesman inside of me who can convince me to do almost anything, even things I know I shouldn't do. And why is this inner salesperson so persuasive in my life and your life? Well, it kind of gets to the second reason, and that is this. Our hearts are messed up. And if you don't want to listen to me talk about your heart, let me quote the prophet Jeremiah, who wrote these words in the Old Testament. The human heart is the most deceitful of all things and desperately wicked. Who really knows how bad it is? Jeremiah, how do you really feel about the human heart? Well, he just told us. Talk about blunt. There it is right there. And when you talk to people about how do you make decisions, what you'll hear the majority of people in America say is simply this. I just look down deep inside. I just look into my heart. Well, think about what Jeremiah just said, and next time you hear someone say that, well, I just look deep inside of myself. I just look into my heart. You should probably say something like this. Well, bless your heart and check your heart, because your heart is messed up. We need a better system for making better decisions. And that's why today I want to show you what it takes to make better decisions by consulting wiser, older, more experienced people. And I want to show you an example of someone who almost got it right. They almost got it right. It's an Old Testament character by the name of Rehoboam. You've probably never heard of Rehoboam before, but you probably heard of his daddy, because his daddy's name was Solomon, King Solomon, the wisest person to ever live outside of Jesus. And before we look at what Rehoboam did, I want to quote Daddy. I want to quote Solomon, who wrote a book of the Bible that I absolutely love. It's the book of Proverbs. Here's what Daddy Solomon said. Plans, this is Proverbs 15:22, go wrong for lack of advice. Many advisors bring success. Proverbs 19:20, get all the advice and instruction you can so you will be wise the rest of your life. And then this is my favorite one, Proverbs 12:15. Fools think their own way is right, but the wise, what do the wise do? They listen to others. And the question is, will Rehoboam listen to his daddy's advice? Will he listen to others? And we're going to pick up the story in 1 Kings chapter 12. If you want to turn there in your Bible, I invite you to do so. As you're turning there, let me just simply say that Rehoboam is now being crowned the king over Israel. And on the way to being crowned, he's stopped by a group of Jewish leaders, and they have a request for him, and we pick things up in verse 3. The leaders of Israel summoned him, and Jeroboam and the whole assembly of Israel went to speak with Rehoboam. There's our guy. Here's what they said. Your father was a hard master, they said. Lighten the harsh labor demands and heavy taxes that your father imposed on us. Then we will be your loyal subjects. All right, let's just stop right there. Solomon was a very, very wise man, but one thing that he was noted for was very aggressive expansion projects. He was a builder, a big-time builder. And the people, as a result of his aggressive expansion, they were exhausted. They were physically exhausted because they were the manual laborers, but they're also financially exhausted because of all the taxation. And so they're just saying, hey. So how will Rehoboam respond? What will his decision be when it comes to their request? Look at verse 5. Rehoboam replied, give me 3 days to think this over, then come back for my answer. Now, let me ask you, good move or bad move on Rehoboam's part? Good move or bad move? What would you say? I would say good move. Because if you want to make bad decisions, make hasty decisions. If you want to end up in the ditch of life, if you want to make boneheaded moves, botch relationships, just make very quick, snappy decisions. I love the fact that Rehoboam's saying, hey, give me 3 days to think this over. So far, I don't know about you, I'm feeling pretty good about Ray here. All right, let's pick up verse 6. Verse 6, then King Rehoboam discussed the matter with and I want you to highlight this in your mind, with the older men who had counseled his father Solomon. What is your advice, he asked. How should I answer these people? Now, we just stop here for a moment. Good move or bad move on Rehoboam's part? And this one's a slam dunk. He's crushing the whole decision-making process. He is absolutely crushing. He's doing the right thing. It brings a smile to my face when he goes to the older men, these older advisors, these guys who are no longer on the payroll, these guys who have nothing to lose from telling him the truth, these guys who will tell it like it is instead of telling it like he wants to hear it. And he's going to these older men, and he's saying, hey, what do you think I should do? And how do the older people, these older advisors, what do they say? What do they say to Rehoboam? What they say to him, we're not going to look at it, but it's in verse 7. They say, back off. Solomon pushed the people too hard. Your daddy was a little bit too hard on them, so back down a little bit, give them a little bit of breathing room, and they will be your loyal subjects forever. And the question, of course, is, how will Rehoboam respond? Will he listen to these older, wiser advisors or not? Verse 8. But Rehoboam rejected the advice of the older men and instead, underline that, highlight that, asked the opinion of the younger men who had grown up with him and were now his advisors. What is your advice, he asked them. How should I answer these people who want me to lighten the burdens imposed on my father? And look what they said. The young men replied, this is what you should tell those complainers who want a lighter burden. My little finger is thicker than my father's waist. Yes, my father laid heavy burdens on you, but I'm going to make them even heavier. My father beat you with whips. I will beat you with scorpions. And I read that and I go, rah, rah. Yeah, bad move, Ray. Bad move, Rehoboam. Instead of listening to the older, wiser people who had nothing to lose and telling him the truth, he turns to Ross and Joey and Chandler, his drinking buddies, the guys he golfs with, the guys on the payroll who are going to tell him what he wants to hear and not what he should hear. And as a result, and you can read the history for yourself because it's all preserved for us, the nation of Israel turns their back on Rehoboam. In fact, the nation of Israel ends up at war with itself, all because a guy by the name of Rehoboam, the leader, didn't listen to the wise counsel of other people. What's the moral of this particular story in the Old Testament? And I put it in one sentence for you, and here it is. We end up in better places when we travel with others who are wise. Let me say that again. We end up in better places when we step outside of the circle of our friends and we tap people on the shoulder, the Rick Steves of the world who've been there, done that, who have experience and wisdom. When we tap them on the shoulder and get their input, we travel better. We make better decisions. We stay out of the ditches of life. You see, our problem today isn't information. No one's sitting around going, oh, I wish I could get access to information. Oh, 20 gigabits per second, we get information. Google, YouTube. Our problem today is not information. We are swimming in a sea of knowledge and information. That is not our problem. You know what our problem is? Would you please hear this? Our problem is not information. Our problem is finding someone to interpret the information that's out there for us. Our problem is someone to interpret and apply all the information and knowledge out there to our specific lives. And it's hard for me to say this, but I need to say this and you need to say this. I need help. I need help. I need guidance. I need wisdom. And so do you. And so do you. I know that sounds like a sign of weakness to say that, but the truth is, it's actually a sign of strength to put our hand up and to say, hey, can you help me make a better decision? Can you help me with this decision that I'm facing right now? After all, come on, after all, nobody knows everything about everything, right? We all know people who think they know everything about everything, but the truth is none of us know everything about everything. And that's why if we're going to travel better down the road of life, we've got to get help from other people. We've got to ask, what would a wise person say to me? And then we've got to actually ask a wise person what they would say to me. Let me just say it again. We end up better. We end up in better places when we travel with others who are wise. And now, let me see if I can anticipate your next question. Oh, here it is right here. Pastor Phil, where do we find these wise people that you talk about? Okay, that's a great question. I'm so glad that you're asking it. And this is going to be really easy if you're in one of our buildings right now. And if you're not in one of our buildings right now, this is going to be a hard thing for me to respond to. Because if you're in a building, the answer to the question, where are these wise people? The answer is, look around you. Look around you. Because they're everywhere. They're everywhere. In fact, one of the things I love about Crossroads is that we have a plethora of people from all different ages and stages. We have every single generation represented at Crossroads. And that's not true in most churches. In fact, in most churches in America, you walk in and you either see just a bunch of old people with gray hair over in the church, or you see a bunch of people with holes in their jeans, a bunch of young people. That's all you see in most churches, but not at Crossroads. We actually have a great deal of people in every single age group, in every single generation represented. And let me just tell you what the older generation at Crossroads is thinking. They don't usually say this out loud, but here's what they're thinking. As they look around Crossroads, what they see are a bunch of young people leading everything. And so what they think to themselves is, as they look around, they think, I guess I'm not really needed at Crossroads. I guess I'm just here. I guess I'll just sit in a chair or watch this on my TV screen. And nothing could be farther from the truth than that. The untapped wisdom of that generation, the 55-plus generation, the 50-year-olds, 60-year-olds, 70-year-olds, 80-year-olds, the untapped wisdom, friends, it's there. And our mission, if we want to travel better in life, is to tap those people, those senior members on the shoulder and get their input and get their insight and get their help. Because the wisdom is there. They can help take all the information and all the knowledge, and they can help us interpret it and apply it like no one else in our lives. And recently, we had the privilege of just sitting down with just a handful of some of our senior members of Crossroads Church to just ask them a few questions and got a little bit of their input. And I invite you right now to lean in and watch this with me.
How many years?
54 years.
53.
53. It will be 54 this year. That's why I'm counting it as 54. Almost. So we've been coming to Crossroads for, must be 40, 41 years. I'm Mary Langstrat.
I'm Warren Langstrat.
I'm Deb Kelly. My husband, Truman.
Hello.
We've been coming to Crossroads for
7 years, maybe?
Oh golly, I think longer than that.
Longer than 7 years.
My name is Jim Meyer. I've been coming to Crossroads for 18 years.
Me? Well, I have advice for all kinds of circumstances. The only love that's really genuine on this planet is God's love.
Amen.
And so my message is go strong to God, and He will give you His perfect love to share with each other. And if you're sharing God's love with each other, your marriage is going to be on a firm foundation.
Communicate. Keep the communication open. Keep doing what you did when you were dating. Have a date night. Have something that you set your time aside for each other.
I think, you have to be honest with one another. It sounds kind of crazy, but it's not a competition. And it's not a matter of who wins this or wins that or gets this need or that need met or whatever. It's you have to be honest with one another, with not only your feelings, but your beliefs, because we're all different.
There are many battles in which we as humankind will feel that we're losing. It's easy to be discouraged and to feel hopeless. And that's where God comes in. And that's where our knowledge comes in. And reading the Word, studying the Word, letting that Word permeate in your heart and soul, it will keep you in this tough world.
And it's so important being in fellowship with fellow Christians. It's so important. We were at home for a year watching services on our computer, and coming back was just like flowering again. I mean, it's wonderful to be praising in with others, and fellowship is very important.
Yes, even without the coffee bar.
Yeah, we miss a coffee bar.
I spend time with the Lord every day, every morning. Your whole relationship with Jesus, I think, changes. Because now you're able to say by faith that I can appropriate that to my life. And by appropriating it to my life, that's faith. And that steps beyond belief. I believe these things are true, but if I appropriate them to my life, that makes all the difference in the world. That's living by faith. And I think that's pretty much my advice to the next generation, was get into the Word, share what God is doing in your life with the scriptures that you're reading and learning from. And that's the way that you build your relationship with Jesus. It's the way you build your faith.
The next generation has so many opportunities out there and so many different directions that they can go in. So it's important not to get stressed over thinking about the future and where the future is going to be. So have patience, have confidence in God, pray over these things, let Him open doors for you, let Him direct you in your life.
Well, I was 19 when my mom died, and at 19 I was pretty self-absorbed. I never told her thanks for all the sacrifices that she made so I could have a great childhood. And I never gave her enough hugs or enough kisses. And I guess my message is, if you love somebody, tell them that you love them. Show them that you love them, because that option might not always be on the table.
Wow. Hey, what you don't know is that we had about 40 minutes of video footage that we had when we sat down with those senior members of Crossroads. And we boiled it down to 4 minutes for you. But I just want you to know, I watched all 40 minutes a few times, and I found myself, as I was watching every single minute and listening to every single thing they said, I just found myself nodding my head and smiling in agreement. There was so much wisdom there. And I just want to say to you, get it. Tap those people on the shoulders. You may have to get involved in a small group. You may have to serve in some way. You may have to show up in a building at some point when it's safe for you. But you need to show up, and you need to tap those people on the shoulders, because here's what I know about them. They have so much to give. They have so much to offer, and they would be absolutely delighted to share their wisdom with you. And as you tap them on the shoulder, as you're facing a weighty decision in your life, I want to give you the 2 questions to ask them. These are 2 questions that, if you'll write these down, take a picture of them on your screen or whatever you want to do, these will keep you out of the ditches of life. And here they are. Here's what you ask them. What would you do if you were me? And the second question you ask them is, has God, from what you know, has God spoken on this matter, on this decision that I'm facing in the Bible? And then you listen. And unlike Rehoboam, you don't just listen, but you take what they say and you put it into action. And I hope you'll do this. I hope you'll take this step. I have one more thing I want to say. I want to say this, that all of these people who give you counsel or advice or mentoring, they don't all have to be alive. I know that sounds weird. Hang in here with me, though. I also want you to know that the Bible is full of what we call divine mentors. The Bible is full of the stories of men and women who have gone before us. People who, their stories are preserved in the Bible, good, bad, and ugly. We looked at one today. We looked at Rehoboam's story, the guy who almost got it right, and we are wiser today because we looked at his story. And I want to say to you, if you're not in the habit of opening up God's Word and gleaning the wisdom that's there from the divine mentors of the past, I can't give you better advice than get into the Word and start mining the wisdom that is there. In fact, for the next 31 days, we always have a to-do for you, and here it is. For the next 31 days, we are going to go to the book of Proverbs. We mentioned Solomon earlier, full of wisdom, short, pithy, tweet-sized nuggets of wisdom. And for 31 days, we're going to read one chapter from the book of Proverbs together. And since tomorrow, I believe, is April 26th, we're actually going to start in Proverbs 26. This is not one of those books of the Bible you have to read sequentially or in order. No, you can start anywhere. So we're going to start Proverbs 26 on April 26th. On April 27th, we're going to be reading Proverbs 27, and then on April 28th, help me out here, we're going to be reading Proverbs. Yeah, see how much smarter you are just for tuning in today. But here's what I know. Here's what I know about you, and here's what I know about me. I want to make better decisions and have fewer regrets. And for that to happen, we have to have some travel essentials. Look back before you make a decision. Have I made this decision before? And what did I learn from the past? And then look ahead. Look ahead. Where is this? If I decide this or that, where is it going to take me? And then please don't forget to travel with people who are wise. Tap them on the shoulder and tap those divine mentors in the Bible on the shoulder and say, what would you do if you were me. And what I know is if you apply these messages to your life, you will have far fewer boneheaded moves that you'll make, and you'll have far fewer botched relationships on your relational resume. You will make better decisions, and you will have fewer regrets. And that's my prayer for you and me. In fact, let me pray for you. God, thank you so much. Thank you so much for the stories that are preserved in your holy word. And God, it's our prayer that we would be faithful in opening up the Bible, and that your Spirit would be faithful as your Spirit is in opening up our eyes to the truth, to the wisdom that we find there. And I also want to pray, God, for every single person who needs someone in their life who's a little bit older and a little bit wiser to give them input and counsel and advice. I pray that every single one of us would find that person that we can tap on the shoulder, and we would listen, and that we would apply what they say. And most of all, we thank you for Jesus, who showed us clearly how to live. We pray this in his name. Amen.